Amy White has joined the conference.
All right, Chairman, when you're ready, we're ready.
All right, terrific. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this April 16, 2019 Executive Committee conference call of the North Carolina State Board of Education. I'm Eric Davis, Chair of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. I now ask Dr. Townsend Smith to call the roll to determine that we have a quorum of the Board participating. I note to all listening that the Executive Committee quorum is 4 members. Dr. Townsend Smith?
Yes, sir. Ms. White?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Present.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Here.
Chair Davis?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Board members were reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record, and if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair, and it will be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Board members, you've seen the agenda for this April 16, 2019 meeting and had the opportunity to review it. I ask if there are any requests for changes to the agenda, and if not, I request a motion for approval.
I'll move approval.
Motion by Ms. White. Is there a second?
Is Mr. Ford second?
Second by Mr. Ford. Dr. Townsend Smith, please call the roll to capture the vote to approve the agenda.
Yes, sir. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith. We'll now proceed directly to our report from the FAST NC Steering Committee. We're glad to have back with us former State Superintendent Mr. Mike Ward, Chair of the FAST NC Steering Committee. Welcome, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, thank you for this time to discuss the work of FAST NC. We have 6 applications from rounds 9 and 10 for your consideration this morning. Mr. Chair, may I proceed with describing those applications?
Please do.
Okay. I'll proceed in alphabetical order according to the district name. The first application is from Columbus County, and this application is from Tabor City Elementary School. It is submitted by San Dozier. It's a request for $2,100. The request covers reading materials, SRA corrective reading decoding materials. These materials the materials that they replaced were damaged by moisture from the storm. The application will cover materials in 3 classrooms. The steering committee recommends approval of the $2,100. Mr. Chair, how would you like to proceed? Do you want to vote on the 6 items separately, or shall we? It may be useful to consider them separately. Some are a little more complicated than others.
Okay. All right. Well, we can consider each one separately. Are there any questions for Mr. Ward on this application from Columbus County? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the steering committee concerning this application from Columbus County?
This is Mrs. White. I will move approval of the Columbus County application at Tabor City Elementary School for $2,100.
Motion by Ms. White. Is there a second?
Second. Board.
Second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion? Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote?
Yes, sir. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second application is an application from Queens Creek Elementary School in Onslow County. The request in this case is a request for $1,065.88. These funds would replace items that are used in the exceptional children's programs. These are materials to help students develop motor skills and coordination. These were materials that were damaged as a result of the hurricane. I actually had a question. I make a call concerning each of the applications that we received, and I had an application. I had a question about the term augment items in the first line of the application. So I did call to confirm that all of the items that are requested replace materials that were damaged by the storm, and Ms. Daly confirmed that they are. These materials will serve 5 classrooms in the Exceptional Children's Program. The steering committee recommends approval of the $1,065.88 requested by Ms. Daly at Queens Creek Elementary School.
Any questions on this recommendation? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the application from Onslow County for Queens Creek Elementary as recommended by the steering committee?
This is Mrs. White. I will move approval of this application at Queens Creek Elementary School.
Second. Motion by Ms. White, second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion? Dr. Townsend-Smith?
Yes. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Ward. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, the next application is an application from Southwest Elementary School, also in Onslow County, request by Principal Elizabeth Castle. This one is one of those that stretches our construct of loss as a result of the storm. Loss, the steering committee in this application constructed loss as lost opportunity for reading and access to reading materials during a significant period of time when school and the library was not open. The request is for funds to hire a media assistant and related materials in order to keep the library open for a set number of days during the summer months, so that students and families from 4 different schools will have access to these resources for a summer reading program. You saw in the application the kinds of activities that will be involved in the summer reading program. $3,500 of the $5,000 that is requested will pay for an assistant to help staff the program, and $1,500 will provide materials for the programs. The steering committee recommends approval of the request by Ms. Castle from Southwest Elementary School in Onslow County.
Questions on this application?
I do have a question. Were they
Yes,
not,
Ms. White.
were they, I'm sure you, yes, Mrs. White, I'm sure you made the call, Chairman Ward. Did they have a pre-existing summer reading program, or is this a program that they were starting for the first time?
They have, so to say, yes, it was a pre-existing program, but actually I don't recall that we asked that specific question. What she said was this would create opportunity in the summer to replace lost opportunity during the school year as a result of the lost time in school. but I don't recall whether or not we specifically asked the question, was this something you were already planning to do? My memory and impression is that this was going to be an extension of whatever it is they do in the summer and would be extended to multiple campuses, not just their campus, but would serve multiple schools in their immediate surroundings.
This is Alan Duncan. This is something that I would like to support because I think it's a good thing. But I'm struggling that it doesn't really just open Pandora's box to a number of. This school is situated like many other schools in which they lost a tremendous amount of instructional time in trying to make this, trying to do this in the summer is laudable and something that I think and hope they will do, whether funded or not by Fast NC. But I can't make it fit within the rubric in my own mind. Is there anything you could say to try to help me see this more clearly than I'm apparently seeing it?
The committee wrestled with this like you're wrestling with it, Mr. Vice Chair. It does stretch the rubric a bit. The board and the steering committee have done that in some instances where the construct of what's lost as a result of the storm wasn't quite so precise. And because of the merits, because of the lost time, because of what was a relatively small amount to accomplish a pretty fair amount of good, the committee leaned in the direction of supporting it.
Thank you for those thoughts.
This is Mr. Ford. I apologize for the background noise first of all. So conceptually, this is supposed to fulfill the replacement requirement by recovering for lost instructional time, 6 weeks due to the hurricane. Is that correct?
It's to help compensate for lost time. That amount of time, instructional time, is certainly not something that can be compensated for by not what's described here. It helps, but they don't propose at all that it replaces what was lost.
So it's not sort of explicitly positioning this as a replacement then, although it is saying that something that instructional time was lost.
Yeah, there was a significant amount of time lost by the 4 schools in the community, significant instructional time. They don't have a library in the community. The school actually serves as a resource center for parents to secure materials during the year that they can use during the summer. What this would do, to secure materials that they use during the school year. What this would do is extend that opportunity in the summer, and the way it was explained would help to compensate in part for what was lost by way of the 6 weeks of instructional time that were missed during the days out. I hope that helped.
Yes, somewhat, kind of. Because I guess for me, it would make sense if they were essentially positioning this as a swap, saying we lost this instructional time, and therefore we have to recoup that by, making available this resource over the summertime. And so one serves as a replacement. But the fact that it doesn't sound like they're explicitly labeling that, I think it makes it even harder for me to fit that into the criteria. But even if they did, I would like to see a little bit more detail in how they plan on executing, how to make sure that the students who missed out on their instruction time are actually, how they're ensuring that they're going to participate in this program, et cetera. So I think it helps, but it doesn't close the gap entirely for me. But I do appreciate the answer.
And maybe these 2 sentences might help a little bit. It's the opening lines of their explanation of how the funds would benefit. As a result of the hurricane, our children lost 6 weeks of literacy instruction. We want to help heal that gap by opening our library over the summer. That's not explicitly saying it's replacing X amount of time from the 6 weeks that were lost, but it will help with that loss of time in literacy instruction by making a library resource available to kids and families. Anyway, this was not an easy call, but the committee leaned in the direction of supporting it.
Can I ask one last question? Have we approved up till this time? I've been searching my memory and I couldn't come up with anything, but my memory is far from flawless. Have we approved anything up to this point where we would be paying a salary out of the amount being approved? I don't recall one of those.
I don't recall one of those either.
Yeah, I'm scanning back through now to see if I can spot one. There are dozens of applications, but I don't recall that we have either.
This is Mrs. White. I absolutely am supportive of the initiative. I'm questioning why in the world they would not have been doing this anyway with no public library, and I'm counting Southwest, Blue Creek, Meadowview, and Southwest Middle. That's 4 schools. It seems like they should be dipping into a different pot of funds. My concern with the application, again, realizing that we're at the end of the grant period, but we have not paid for a position, to my knowledge, in any of the other grants. And I could easily substitute in that first sentence, as a result of the hurricane, our children lost 6 weeks of computer instruction, of PE instruction. And so I think we're setting ourselves up. I'm just struggling for the operational cost of the personnel. But I support their mission. I just think they ought to be looking for money from a different pot.
Quick clarifying question. It's a 2-part budget. One is for personnel and one is for materials. I don't know if that distinction is of use at this point, but I'll just offer it as a reminder.
It appears in the language used in the application that the $1,500 would be used for materials for the programs implemented by the personnel that they would hire. My only hang-up is the fact that we're paying a person.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that is that if the board wanted to approve the materials and put the onus for staffing the project back on the district, that might be another option. Or the board's certainly at liberty to also say that this one just doesn't fit our guidelines well enough and turn it down.
Any other discussion on this one? Okay. And is there a motion for this request from Onslow County for Southwest Elementary School?
This is Mrs. White. I will move that we not approve this application. Sorry.
Okay. Motion by Ms. White. Is there a second?
Second. And it's also,
Second by Mr. Duncan.
I hope the program goes forward. I'm just not sure it fits in our rubric.
Any other discussion? And Dr. Townsend Smith?
Yes. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, the next item is a request from Swansboro Middle School. This is from the principal, Mr. Mabry. Mr. Mabry requests $24,422. $6,300 of this fund would be for group counseling sessions. The school and school community was particularly hard hit, and you've seen in the application his indications of some of the trauma that have been experienced by students, the fact that 60 students remain displaced at this time. The second portion of the funds requested is $18,122. This is for staff development related to a program called Responsive Classroom. This is a program that 8 members of his staff participated in last summer. The summer is about, this would allow continued training in Responsive Classroom. And the program is about focusing on social emotional learning as a means of supporting academic growth and providing emotional support to students in the process. The steering committee reviewed this and concluded that the $6,300 for group counseling, that we would support that we thought, again, while it stretches the notion of loss, that it would address what in essence amounts to lost emotional well-being, sense of security, those kinds of things. But the committee did not recommend the expenditure of the $18,122 for the Responsive Classroom professional development. So you have a recommendation from the committee to approve $6,300 for the group counseling sessions and disapprove $18,122,000 for professional development for the Responsive Classroom training.
Questions on this recommendation?
It's Mr. Ford. I have a question. So is it a matter of qualification for funds to have to replace something, or is it just that the funds could be used to for students to provide aid for students and employees at schools that have been impacted by the hurricane? I mean, is the notion of replacing something that has been lost as a result of the hurricane, is that a hard criteria for us?
That was a criterion established at the outset as the board considered the application process and the criteria that would be weighed. The application specifies that the focus is on replacing things lost or damaged as a result of the storm. The language gives you some wiggle room around that, but it definitely makes clear that your focus is on replacing that which is lost or damaged as a result of the storm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
because that makes sense, and so I'm inclined to, at this point, support the recommendation from the steering committee. But when we talk about the notion of things that are lost or damaged, I do think it stretches the idea, the concept of what can be lost or damaged, even with the 6,300, right? Group counseling services are likely required, and there has been likely trauma and emotional, mental damage from the storm, the effects of the storm. But it just makes me wonder if it even fulfills that criteria. So I'm still processing out loud how to make that fit.
Yeah, again, this is one of those. It's not an easy call, but we on multiple occasions the board has been willing where the construct of loss or damage was not quite so clear cut. There have been some instances where the board was willing to make that stretch. So we wanted to put this one before you for your consideration, with the idea in this instance of lost sense of well-being, lost emotional security, for your consideration. The application also, this is a little different in terms of the decision you just made, in terms of paying for a position. This would actually be a contract with an organization that provides counseling services. Lifetimes Counseling is the name of the organization.
This
Other questions on
application just rips my heart out. I again, feeling like it's way outside the construct of the intent of the fund to replace instructional items and damage to the school versus the mental well-being. Having a hard time reconciling the two. I'm wondering if other school districts that knew that we might fund, because of the interpretation of the language, other school districts that knew that we might fund something like this most likely would have sent in similar requests, because the social emotional damage from the impact of this storm has been devastating. So I'm having a hard time reconciling the use of the funds in this way.
Could I ask a question, follow it up on that comment, which I share all the sentiments that were just expressed. And I'm wondering, because I don't feel like I have a real connection to what's being done with the additional funding that's being administered through communities and schools. Is this kind of request, and my recollection is they likely have more money still available in terms of considering requests, but I may not be right about that. Is this genre of request and ones that could then follow up, because as Ms. White just said, there's numerous schools that have been impacted in this way with very large numbers of their students who are displaced, and it is totally heartbreaking. Is there a way that if others will, if this were to be considered by that group and with the expectation and likely knowledge that if that door is opened, that there would be other potential applicants under that notion, that they could consider it and take it up in that way? That's a very inartful question, but I think you understand what I'm asking.
Yeah, I do. And the steering committee has been very deliberate in applying the same criteria and deliberative process to applications, whether they are steered to the state board for the North Carolina Education Fund or to communities and schools to be paid for out of their foundation. The agencies, the board's internal auditor was really helpful to us in thinking through that process, and it was clear very early in our discussion about how to apply the criteria and the process to the communities and schools funds, that we wouldn't want to apply one set of criteria since all all the applications are coming through one portal, apply one set of criteria to one fund source and a different set of criteria to another fund source. So we've tried to be very consistent in the application of those criteria. Does that help?
It does, and I guess to that point, what I'm saying is you have done that. That is what the committee has done. And as you're aware, occasionally our executive committee has not agreed with the committee's recommendation, although the vast majority of times we have, and we're beyond words and measure to say thank you for the work that you and the committee have done. But the point is there is a committee recommendation, and it might be that recommendation could possibly be viewed differently by the Communities and Schools Board. Then we're struggling with it a little more. I guess that's really the genesis of the question, because it wouldn't change the fact your committee recommended this. We're struggling with approval of it. Their group that we consider might be more amenable in a more unanimous kind of way to accept that recommendation, is what I'm trying to say, or trying to follow up on.
And I hear that loud and clear, Mr. Vice Chair, and we'll do what the board asks us to do. You all set this process up originally, and you've been wonderful to extend an incredible amount of support out into the communities that were damaged. What such a precedent might do is put us in the position of needing to revisit every application the board has disapproved to forward over to communities and schools. Every recommendation that we supported and the board said no to, which we absolutely respect. We understand and respect that prerogative. But I think it will put us in the position of, out of a sense of fairness, needing to go back and revisit all the applications where the steering committee made a recommendation and the board didn't support it. It's not that there are that many of them, but I think it does put us in that circumstance.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts. Can I state it one last way? If our committee were to approve this request on the counseling portion of it, and I believe Ms. White's prognostication is correct, that there will be a number of other counties saying, I didn't realize that was available, and then pursue it. And God bless each and every one of them, because it is an appropriate thought to have in terms of the welfare of the whole child. But I don't think we have enough funding remaining to cover those kinds of requests, so it would become a CIS issue at some point regardless in terms of what their stance is. And if they've already handled one of these, it might be worthwhile for us to know, to be consistent with the thoughts you just expressed about this.
Yeah, I think this is a first case for us. I don't recall that at any point we've asked the Communities and Schools Fund or the Communities and Schools Foundation Board to consider a request like this. There's not a precedent for this one. I'm confident in saying that. But let me just glance back through the ones that we've done with Communities and Schools.
This is Mr. Ford. I'm going to have to abstain from this conversation briefly.
Yeah,
with regard to the conversations, yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, do you need to respond to that? In any event, Mr. Vice Chair, there's not a precedent for this that I can find in the applications that have been sent to Communities and Schools. We're also approaching the end of the grant cycle and approaching the end of, as you noted, the funds available to the State Board of Education for disbursement through FAST-NC. We've advertised through round 13. Round 11 comes in this week. And what we have made the list of approvals known in various communications as we sent out updates on FAST-NC through the various communication circles and through our partner organizations, over 30 partner organizations. We've made the list of applications available so folks would have a sense of what we're approving. We haven't, over the course of 10 application cycles, seen a lot of duplicating of replicated themes. There are sometimes teachers who, realizing that something might be approved, will get multiple applications, but it's not a landslide. We might get 3 to 5 applications with similar kinds of requests. We've had 3 applications with fairly large ticket requests for help with media center furnishings that were damaged, that kind of thing. But to date, we haven't had a lot of what appeared to be, oh my, I didn't know that was the kind of thing covered, and all of a sudden see a spate of applications that are nature. We have some that are similar, but that hasn't tended to be the trend with applications. And again, we are nearing the end of the application cycles. I don't know that it's helpful to point that out or not, but thought I'd mention it. And again, the steering committee, we understand that we're advisory, and we respect the board's discretion in this, and always speak supportively of the board's actions, whether it's an approval or disapproval. You all have done tremendous good out in the communities that were impacted, and whatever your decision is, we're going to speak well of it and speak well of the incredible things you've done to help out.
Thank you for that, for all those thoughts.
Is Mr. Ford back with us?
Yes, he is getting back on.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion concerning the Onslow County Swansboro Middle School recommendation from the steering committee?
With deep regret, this is Mrs. White, but I make the recommendation that we do not approve this application.
Okay, motion by Ms. White. Is there a second?
With equally deep regret, I will second. This is very hard.
Second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion? Dr. Townsend Smith, to capture the vote.
Yes. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, motion carries. Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next application is from Pamlico County. Principal Jeremiah Johnson from Pamlico County Middle School has requested $8,950. And in this instance, the principal polled his faculty. This was a school that was particularly hard hit by the storm. He polled the faculty to determine things that were lost or damaged as a result of the storm. So the request is actually set of items, or it's categorized into amounts where he tallied the requests of staff members and then provided an explanation for each of those subcategories. And so this, again, is $8,950 to replace items lost and damaged by the storm. And the committee recommends approval of this amount, $8,950, to replace these items.
Any questions on the Pamlico County Middle School recommendation? Hearing none, is there a motion on the Pamlico County Middle School recommendation?
This is Mr. Ford. I move that we move to approve the Pamlico County Middle School FAFSA application for the amount of $8,950.
Motion by Mr. Ford. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion? Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote?
Yes, sir. Ms. White? Ms. White? Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Hello.
Ms. White, can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, that was a complete vacuum. There was silence.
Oh, wow.
So
The vote for approval for $8,950 for Pamlico County Middle School.
yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
Motion carries. Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chair, the last item before you is a request from Robinson County. This is a request from Ms. Pridgeon, who is engaged in school social work at Lumberton High School. A number of the students at Lumberton High School were impacted by the storm. Her original request included a request for clothing, food, and hygiene products. Her request is for $2,500. The board has a precedent for this particular request. You'll recall that we had a request from a social worker serving three elementary school sites, Ms. Chavis, and she requested instructional supplies, hygiene products, perishable and non-perishable food items, and the board in that instance said yes to hygiene products and instructional supplies, but no to clothing and the food requests. There was not a budget that attended the original application, and I called to talk to Ms. Chavis, and I spoke with her about her request and about the board's dispositions in the past relative to these kinds of requests. I told her that we needed a budget as well to support the application. When she submitted the budget, entirely for hygiene items for the youngsters that she serves at the high school. So you have a request for $2,500 for hygiene items for the school social work program at Lumberton High School. The committee recommends approval.
Any questions on this recommendation? Hearing none, is there a motion concerning the Robinson County Lumberton High School recommendation?
So move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ford. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote?
Yes, sir. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Motion carries. Mr. Ward, any other items for our meeting today?
That's got it, Mr. Chair. Board members, thank you so much for your deliberations on these items. These are important, although not always easy, requests to address. And I'll just close with something I've said already. You're doing an incredible amount of good in a lot of communities across storm-ravaged areas of the state, and it is much appreciated.
Well, Mr. Ward, thank you for your
this is-
leadership. Ms. White?
Thanks, Chair Davis. I am concluding this call with a heart that's really heavy for the students and families that have been impacted by this storm. And I'm just wondering, given the request that we denied regarding the counseling services needed, if we might leverage our or your position as the FAST NC committee to reach out to some of our counterparts in DHHS to communicate the need and wonder if they might have any additional funds or in-kind type counseling services if we mounted an effort or used our position as an advocacy position for students and families in that part of the state. Just trying to find a way to get the services to the families that need it with a different pot of money.
I'd be glad to make that call in that capacity, Ms. White. That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, I second that thought. I mean, there are ways outside NC Fast where I think we're trying very hard to be consistent with what we perceive the rubric to be. There are private and public sources that I think would want to assist in that kind of important endeavor for the health of the whole child, which we all care deeply about.
I'll be happy to do that. It's a great recommendation.
Thank you so much for considering that request.
My pleasure.
Any other business before us this morning, board members? Hearing none, thanks to everyone for your participation on this executive committee of the State Board of Education. Our business is concluded, and I'll now ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Ford.
Motion by Mr. Ford. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Duncan. Dr. Townsend Smith?
Yes. Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thanks to you all. Have a good day.
Bye-bye, y'all. Happy Easter. Thanks, everybody.
Happy Easter.
Take care.
Eric Davis.
Has left the conference.
You got the last language, Karen?